And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys tuning in after quite a hectic day as the trade deadline has come and gone. Lots of activity. A lot of teams ultimately did improve their rosters, and a few teams didn't do enough. We'll get into the winners and losers tonight. We'll also get into the power rankings with where these teams ultimately stack up after the deadline and who ultimately makes it to the postseason and how far they will go. That and much more ahead next year at the Upside. But be sure to hit that like down at the very bottom of the video. Helps us out quite a bit. Hit that subscribe button. That little bell will turn on the notifications when we do go live. We'll continue doing these videos throughout the remainder of the season, so be sure to join us. And then, of course, in the off season, you'll have your MLB Hot Stove Daily, just like you always did this entire off season, here at the Upside. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, the trade deadline has come and gone. Some of the biggest trades that we did see: Mason Miller, JP Sears go to the Padres. They were big buyers at the deadline. Astros able to reunite with Carlos Correa, and the Rangers add one of the best starting pitchers on the market in Merrill Kelly. The surprising thing, there weren't that many starters that moved at all. Taj Bradley, one of the other starters that moved, Mike Soroka, Zach Little. That's basically the entire length of the starters that moved here at the deadline. JP Sears, the other one. That's basically it. Not a lot of starters moved. Zach Gallen didn't go anywhere. Mitch Keller didn't go anywhere. Joe Ryan didn't go anywhere. Dustin May did end up in the with the Boston Red Sox. So they did get at least some reinforcements there. But none of the big names that we're hoping to see moved. The best starter that moved, that's going to have an impact on the playoff race this year, that ends up going to the Texas Rangers, who helped bolster their bullpen as well by bringing in Phil Maton and Danny Coulombe. They do miss on bringing in David Bednar from the Pittsburgh Pirates. He ends up going to the New York Yankees, who load up on relievers. I believe they added 3 relievers today, bringing in Camilo Doval, from the San Francisco Giants. They also bring in Bird from the Colorado Rockies, and Bednar, of course. So they're going to have a nice bullpen going forward, at least you assume. But they have 3 guys that have at least closed games before on their roster now. They should be able to close down games a little bit better. The surprise there, the Yankees don't add a starting pitcher. The other big surprise, the Chicago Cubs. What are we doing? They don't add a frontline starter to their rotation that is begging for one. They make a mistake by giving Jed Hoyer an extension before the deadline, and he goes soft here at the deadline, and all in season for the Chicago Cubs just gone like this. I still think the Cubs are going to be a good team. I still think they make the playoffs, but I don't think they have a prayer of getting to the World Series after not acquiring pitching help here at the deadline. That's a miss for Jed Hoyer. Cubs fans irate over them not adding an elite starting pitcher at the front of this rotation, as they should be. This is a very good offensive club. They lose Justin Steele in the middle of the season, early in the season really, and we knew they were going to need pitching even before that. And yet they didn't go out there and add a meaningful starting pitcher. They added Mike Soroka, 3-7, 4.87 ERA. That's not enough. I like Mike Soroka, but at this point in his career, he's the number 5 starter. It's just not enough. The Cubs have a really good team. They had a chance this year to really push the Dodgers, Mets, Phillies for the best team in the National League and possibly get to the World Series and win one. But unfortunately, the Cubs just fall a little bit short here. But appreciate you guys joining us. Quite an active chat already. Willard and Ethan already getting into it in our chat. Appreciate you guys fighting for your teams there. Kelly was the best starter that was moved. There was a lot of rumors about Dylan Cease going to the Astros. They tried really hard to get that one done right underneath the bell, but unfortunately they were unable to do so. But they do bring back Carlos Correa. I think he's going to bring a little bit of swagger back to the clubhouse. I think we've already seen the bravado already come out, and he hasn't even connected with the team yet. The reasons that I kind of went away from watching the Astros as a kid or into my young adulthood was partly because of that swagger that he has. If you're not a fan of the Houston Astros, it's going to completely rub you the wrong way. But if he's on your team, you're going to love it. Kind of the same thing Draymond Green does for the Golden State Warriors. A lot of players kind of have that antagonistic characteristic in them. And Carlos Correa immediately has fallen back into that villain role that he played so well with the Astros before, and I think that's going to do wonders for that Astros clubhouse. That even though they don't bring in a starting pitcher here, they still have a really good punch, or 1-2 punch at the front of that rotation. Hunter Brown, Framber Valdez, they're getting back Arrighetti. They're bringing back Javier as well in another couple of weeks here. They do have some young pitchers that they are relying on, so we'll see if those young pitchers can hold up. But so far, so good for Houston. They are still currently winning in the AL West. We'll have to see if they can hold on to the rest or for the next 55, 60 games for the rest of the way. All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these other comments here. Brandon, welcome back. Yankees fans are so hyped for backup players and one legit pen arm. It's funny to me. Well, I will say Jake Bird does have some scary numbers away from Coors Field. You'd think it'd be the opposite, being a Rockies pitcher, but unfortunately, no. In Colorado, he actually had a 2.84 ERA, I believe. And then on the road, he had a 7.4 ERA. So a little bit worrisome. Maybe it's more of playing in front of your home crowd versus your away crowd more than anything else, rather than the Coors Field effect versus the road effect or anywhere else effect. Hopefully he can take that same success that he had at home to the New York Yankees. So it'll be interesting to see what he happens to bring to them. Doval, I think, is probably going to end up being a kind of a matchup specialist for them. I think they'll rely primarily in the bullpen for Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, and David Bednar to get kind of the 7th, 8th, and 9th, however they want to mix it up. Whether Bednar ends up being the closer or Williams ends up being the closer, I think is up in the air right now. But we'll see how this thing kind of works itself out over the final 60 games of the season. Yankees, I think, did solve some of their big back end of their bullpen issues. Got to wonder about Aaron Judge's health. That's going to be a big thing for them down the rest of the way here. But they didn't add a starting pitcher here, and that to me is a mistake. You're still basically going with Fried as your one. Right now, essentially, he's functioning as your one. Carlos Rodon is your 2, and then beyond that, you got some question marks. You got Warren in there, you got Stroman in there, Schlitter's in there. What are you going to get on any given day from those 3 players? That's why going out there and adding a Merrill Kelly, a Zach Gallen, somebody who's been there, done that, and played postseason baseball would be impactful for the Yankees in October. Remember, the Yankees aren't about winning in September. They're about winning in October. They're about hanging pennants. They're about winning the World Series, getting that trophy, getting the ring. They don't necessarily care about getting into the playoffs and snaking into the wild card race. And by adding these bullpen arms, they're hoping to kind of shorten the game. I imagine that's their thought process there. They got a glut of outfielders now. I guess they're trying to go more platoon heavy by getting guys who can handle left-handed pitching a little bit better. Now with Judge primarily going to be a DH when and if he comes back. But they missed a real opportunity to upgrade that rotation. When so few teams went out there and stepped out on the ledge and added that starting pitcher, there was a real opportunity to really put themselves above the rest. And unfortunately, they just chose not to do so. So 2 of the losers for me from the starting pitching standpoint, you've got to start with the Cubs, of course, number 1. To a lesser extent, the Yankees. And I'm going to put 3rd in there, the Houston Astros. I still think are a winner at the trade deadline here for what they did, rebounding from the loss of Paredes here, solving their need in the corner outfield spot with Jesus Sanchez, adding a Ramon Urias, who's going to be a really nice utility player for them. They've weathered the storm offensively now. Can their pitching hold up will be a question as well. I have a lot of faith in Abreu, but he struggles against Seattle. We've seen it before. Josh Hader is good, of course, against pretty much everybody. But when you have a very tight race here, any advantage that you can get on the pitching side is going to pay dividends in October. And I have to wonder if the Astros did enough on the pitching side of things there. All right, try to catch up on a few of these other comments here. Once I let it sink in, I can't give the Rangers higher than a B-. They never addressed hitting. They just made it stronger. Made something strong even stronger. They did accentuate their strength. I will say that. They did a nice job there solving some needs as far as the depth of the concerns that they had. CY was going to try to add some pitching at some point here. It looked like they were going to try to add a back-end closer, somebody like a Bednar. It seems like they were second in the running for that. The package that ultimately went to Arizona for Kelly seems like the package that they offered for David Bednar. Seems like the Pirates prioritized catching primarily over the pitching that the Rangers were offering. So didn't look like the Rangers ultimately got that close. But we'll see how this thing works out down the rest of the way. Is the decision to go after pitching first and not pay the prices for hitting, since there weren't that many hitters to begin with, instead try to take advantage of not many teams adding starting pitchers here at the deadline? Is that the best course of action? Because now in a postseason series, assuming you get there, which is no small feat right now, offense is going to have to come through here in the final 60 games. It's improving, but they still needed a bat, in my opinion. For this team, Is the 1 through 3 punch there of DeGrom, Eovaldi, and now Kelly enough for them to win a series? I think it's absolutely one of the best 1, 2, 3 of any team, and they have the best rotation ERA in the sport even before Kelly. The bullpen's been fantastic since the beginning of June, and now they added a couple really nice strikeout arms to that in Maton. I like Coulombe as more of a soft contact specialist out of the bullpen. He's been one of the best relievers since 2022. I think he's top 5 in all major statistical categories as far as run prevention goes in all of Major League Baseball. So they get 2 really nice relievers, but they missed the boat there not adding an elite bat. And even just a solid bat would have been a nice get for them. Another miss for me here at the deadline has got to be the Pittsburgh Pirates. Look how many players they didn't trade. Tommy Pham, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. They hold on to Andrew Heaney, Danny Santana, Joey Bart. All of those players had interest from outside clubs. Why are the Pirates holding on to those guys? Those are not long-term pieces for that roster. Why are they not trying to bring in younger players with offensive upside to help improve that offense there? They already lost their manager during the year. Ben Cherington, this was a deadline to save your job. Mitch Keller would have commanded a hefty price on the market. They pulled him off today. We didn't hear any rumors about Mitch Keller today. And instead they moved Bailey Falter, which, hey, all right, you got something for him. But what did you do with the rest of your expiring deals? What did you do as far as Mitch Keller? How is this team appreciably better after the deadline and their future appreciably better after the deadline? And to me, it's just a miss here. Pittsburgh will likely fire Ben Cherington in short order. I think this is a miss of a deadline for him, and ultimately, I think nobody else deserves the blame besides Ben Cherington at this point. He's done a nice job continuing to cultivate pitching talent, but at a certain point, you have to do a little bit of hitting here, and the Pirates just continue to fall woefully short of that. He did do one good thing over the deadline period here. They did get off of the money of Cabrian Hayes. Got a couple of decent pieces back for that, but other than that, not enough here. Bednar, the return they got, kind of resupplying their catching depth there. Like the return that they got, but they should have done so much more at the deadline. So Ben Cherington, I think, has basically sealed his fate there in Pittsburgh. He will be out the door relatively soon. As far as a winner of the day, I got to give it to the NL East. The teams, the Mets, the Phillies, I think did a great job here at the deadline. Getting Duran, bringing in Bader. I think the Phillies did a really nice job here. Of course, you got David Robertson coming up as well, relatively soon. As far as the Mets go, they added several arms to their bullpen over the last week or so. Gregory Soto, Rogers. They added who's the other one they added? Drawing a blank anyway. But they added 3 arms to their bullpen. And they also added Cedric Mullins to the outfield mix as well. Really like what both teams really did in the NL East. I think both teams really supplied themselves really well here at the deadline. I would say the Phillies plugged more holes on their roster because I still have questions about the Mets rotation going into October. I don't understand the flippant nature the New York media has about their rotation. I understand Peterson's played better. But how exactly do you go into a postseason where you're going to be facing the Dodgers' prolific rotation and basically facing an ace in every single game and not have a single horse that can go up against them pitch for pitch? I understand Senga's there. I understand Peterson's had a nice year. I understand you have faith in Montas. I understand you have faith in Manaea, but none of those pitchers are anywhere near the level of the Dodgers starter. Glasnow, Yamamoto, Ohtani when he's healthy, Snell. I think all 4 of those games, Dodgers have a distinct pitching advantage. And so I think there was a missed opportunity here to try to acquire another, elite starting pitcher. There weren't that many on the market. Merrill Kelly was probably the best rental pitcher available, and definitely the best one that moved. The best long-term asset that ultimately did not move was Joe Ryan. I think he would have been still less than what the Dodgers would have been able to throw out there, but I think the series would have been a lot closer there. I think the game would have been a lot closer in that type of scenario. But unfortunately, they didn't upgrade that rotation. There were opportunities to do so, and not many starting pitchers moved. They could have taken advantage of the market that ultimately doesn't seem like they valued the starting pitcher this year. The prices apparently not to the liking of the teams that were buyers, and not many teams stepped out on the limb and made the moves necessary to improve their rosters. But I do like what the Jays did this trade deadline. Multiple moves. Vodnik they bring in, Ty France, depth options for them. Vodnik kind of a 7th, 8th inning guy for me for the Jays. But overall, I like what the Jays did, kind of building on this team that is the American League's best team over the last 60 games. I think it's baseball's best team, actually, over the last 60 games as well. And I think they've solidified themselves at the top of the AL East for the remainder of the season. Bringing in Shane Bieber was a nice get for them. A little bit of a risky move because he hasn't thrown a pitch yet in Major League Baseball this year. But he is coming back relatively soon. They do send out a decent prospect in return. But overall, I like what the Jays have done at the deadline. Unfortunately, they did not get Stephen Kwan here at the deadline. Seems like the Dodgers missed the boat on that one. Guardians should have done more here at the deadline as well. They also go on my losers' side as well. Let's try to catch up on the few more of these comments here. Padres are stacked now. I mean, look at all the moves they made. Mason Miller, J.P. Sears, Ramon Laureano, Ryan O'Hearn. They have a really good bullpen, and they don't trade away from that starting staff. There was a lot of rumors about them trading away some money and Dylan Cease and Ranger Suarez, and ultimately it did not happen. They should be a very good team in the wild card rounds. I just wonder if the starting pitching will hold up. Got to wonder about Darvish's ability. But now that he's getting back into the swing of things, he looked a little bit better in his last start. But we shall see. Astros getting A. They needed offensive help, and they got it, in my opinion. They had a top 3 deadline. Ooh, good point there. I'll give the Padres an A for sure. I'll give the Yankees kind of a B plus because I still think they need to add a starter. Rangers get a B plus for the pitching upgrades, but they didn't do enough on the offensive side. I'll give the Phillies an A. They had a really nice deadline. The Mariners get an A. I'll give the Astros a B plus as well because I still think they need another starter there. They got some guys coming back, but I just wonder. I wonder if they've got enough pitching. They've done a nice job with that young pitching this year. That's been the surprise of the season for the Astros, that the pitching has held up as well as it has. They're getting reinforcements, so you think there'd be enough. But I still have my questions when it comes to October if they'll hold up. We'll see. It's going to be a tough race down the stretch here. They have a 5-game lead in the AL West. We'll see if they can hold on to it. But I still think they had a really nice trade deadline. I think the effect of Carlos Correa is going to be a big determining factor in how good this Astros team is. Do they elevate? Does he kind of raise the team on his back like he's done in years past? He's kind of taken on that role already, and he hasn't even met with the team, so we shall see. Cobra, welcome in. Joshua, welcome in. Steven, welcome in. Appreciate you guys joining us. Caballero goes to the Yankees. I do like that addition there. Yeah, I did see Maldonado got cut. I am curious if he goes to Texas or Houston. I think maybe Houston just to wrap things up, but I think the Rangers have have a spot for him on the roster if he wants it on the big league club. I'm not sure Houston does. I like the speed that the Yankees got in Caballero. They did add Slater. They added Rosario. They added McMahon at the deadline. They added a lot of different names there. Presley cut. Interesting. You're hearing Webb next? I don't think so. He's on the IL. He's going to come back eventually. I think that with the 2 relievers they're bringing in, I don't think there's a spot for him. But I think they'll have some injuries over the next couple of weeks that Webb will still be on the roster. So they get good defense, but the offense sus for the Yankees. Yeah, pretty much. Twins had an amazing deadline as a seller. I think they did probably the best out of all the sellers. I mean, they traded their entire bullpen. I mean, every piece, everything must go. They did a great job. And the pieces that they didn't sell are still going to be there for them to sell this offseason. Ryan, Buxton, Lopez, and others. And now they have Taj Bradley to hold on to it as well. Yankees trades Caballero, Yankees and Rays. That was a pretty interesting trade in the middle of the game. Looks like Cal Raleigh just hit his 42nd home run of the year. 2-0 Mariners lead the Rangers. Kumar Rocker probably headed to either AAA or the bullpen, if I had to guess, with Merrill Kelly likely to take a start in that series. A locker room fight with Maldonado and Adolis. Well, there's a lot of beat writers that are saying Maldonado does have interest from the Rangers, so we shall see. All right, let's get into some of the rankings as well. Let me pull it up for you guys. We'll check out the score of the game first. 3-0 now in the 5th inning. Kumar Rocker Loose command early, still kind of learning on the ropes, but the Rangers, I think, made a decision that they're not going to worry too much about learning on the ropes right now with Kumar Rocker. I think he's an interesting name to watch in the offseason for a trade for a bat. We'll see what they decide to do. But I think he's the guy that ultimately goes to AAA to save his innings. Should have traded Kumar Rocker. I mean, there was nobody to really trade him for here at the deadline. I mean, nobody. I mean, the bats that I would want for Kumar Rocker are proven bats. You know, we're talking Austin Riley, Matt Olson. Those players aren't available. Braves need to add some pitching here, some young pitching, controllable pitching here relatively soon. And Kumar Rocker could be the guy that gets it for him this in the offseason. We'll see. Looks like Rocker might be about finished here. Yeah, looks like he's done here. 4 2/3, gives up 3 runs. My prediction is this game was going to go to the Mariners pretty easily. I think tomorrow night's game likely goes to the Mariners as well with Gilbert on the mound, although he did struggle against the Angels in his last start. I think Game 3 of this series goes to the Rangers. And then Game 4, I'm guessing, will be Merrill Kelly's start. And they'll push back Patrick Corbin to start. That'll be a very close game in Game 4 of the series. All right, let's get into the rankings after the deadline here. We'll scroll all the way down to the bottom. We'll start from the bottom and kind of go upward. I think the Rockies had a nice deadline, but I think their Cinderella story is basically over. Their run of nice play looks like it's over as well. Nationals, I think they missed the boat as far as trading some offensive pieces, Josh Bell among others. They did trade Alex Call, but I'm going to say the Rockies find their way back to the bottom here on our power rankings, are back to number 30. 29, I'm going to move the Nationals up 1 spot. The A's are going to move up a little bit here because I really like the move that they made, trading Mason Miller and J.P. Sears, but they still have a lot of offensive talent. The rise of Nick Kurtz is more of the reason why the A's will be rising in these rankings. White Sox, they trade Adrian Hauser to the Rays, one of the few starters that did move. I like what the Rays did getting Griffin Jax there, but an interesting trade. You had a trade of Taj Bradley in exchange 1-for-1 for Griffin Jax. Now, both are controllable assets. Jax is seen as a more positive asset right now because of how good he is out of the bullpen. Rays have had a lot of troubles out of the bullpen. Bradley was recently recently optioned to the minors due to performance. So obviously the Rays gave up on him to a certain extent. Right or wrong, it looks like they did. So the Twins essentially get a good lottery ticket, a good bet on getting a very high quality starting pitcher in exchange for Griffin Jax. A little bit surprised they settled for one asset and not trying to get a second piece out of it, but they got a really high-end piece out of the deal for Griffin Jax. I like the return there for the Twins overall. I just would have liked a second lottery ticket to at least give me another option if Bradley does indeed fail as a pitcher. But Nationals move up 1 spot. White Sox, to me, with the loss of Hauser, this is not going to be a very good team in the second half. But they're having a nice season to kind of improve off of what they had last year, which was one of the worst seasons in baseball history. The A's move up. To me, the Pirates, they still keep Keller, but they didn't improve their offense, at all. I like the pieces that they did bring in from the few deals that they did. But, so many deadline pieces that should have been moved, they didn't. And I would imagine that they're hoping that maybe they can build a nice core as a team, I suppose, is the thought process there. But again, just a miss for me. So the Pirates drop down a little bit here. Now, A's are still climbing here. Orioles basically jettisoned quite a bit of their roster. The Twins, they lose Carlos Correa. They've still got a couple of pieces that they're hoping to kind of, salvage what's left of their season. Get a few season tickets out of it with Joe Ryan, Byron Buxton, but this is not a good team right now. They're appreciably worse. That bullpen is going to be very scary in the second half here as far as how bad it's going to be. So I'm going to move the Twins down all the way down past the A's. Because Joe Ryan, Buxton, and an injured Pablo Lopez do not a roster make. Next is where I'm putting the A's. I'm moving them up. The loss of Miller and Sears are going to hurt in the short term, but I think in the long term, Kurtz is going to be the engine that carries this team. And I think the trade that they made to get DeVries, one of the top 5 prospects in the game, by almost every single publication, stroke of genius, because now he's a 17-year-old guy. If he ever does become the superstar that projections say he is, the A's do really well. If they don't, and they end up not needing him on the roster, or they use him for a trade piece to bring in some starting pitching, they basically took a couple of long-term assets and turned it into an even longer-term asset. So, we'll see what happens here with their roster going forward, but I think the A's did a very nice trade here with the Padres. All right. Braves, they haven't played very well. They didn't do enough here at the deadline. I'm tempted to move the Braves below the A's, but I still think the talent on the Braves is still there. We shall see. Michael, what are your thoughts on the last comment? Let's see here. They're saying Nitzkirch is basically a miniature version of Mark McGwire. Where is that comparison, you think, coming from? Just because it's the A's and a first baseman, that's where it comes from more than anything else. AL Central is weak, true. I thought the Tigers did a nice job with the bullpen, not really adding too many big pieces, but kind of making some nice additions around the edges to that bullpen. Still not enough for me to consider them a real threat in the American League outside of Tarek Skubal. I'm not a buyer in their offense as far as a sustained model of success, but we shall see. Is on his rehab in Round Rock. He is expected to be back at some point here later in the month of August. Got 40 of you guys with us now. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already down at the bottom of the video. Some teams made deals before July like the Brewers. True, they deserve credit for it. I do like what the Brewers did with Andrew Vaughn. They would be a winner, I suppose. They traded from their depth in Nestor Cortez. Traded him, can't remember, was it the Padres? Priester was a great addition. I love that one. But I'm going to go ahead and put the Braves here right above the A's for now. That's subject to change next week. Orioles, Cardinals, D-backs. D-backs are in a free fall right now. I think that's where we end up putting them right here above the Braves. Both of those teams are playing pretty horribly. Good game, or interesting game at least anyway, from the Braves today and the Reds. I think it was 12-11 in 10 innings. Marlins are showing some fight. Angels are showing some fight. Cardinals sell off a bunch of pieces there. Not everything. They didn't end up trading Donovan. They didn't trade Burleson. They didn't trade Nootbaar. So I'm with the losses the Orioles have, I think I got to put them next. I think the Cardinals are pretty clearly the next team. All of these teams are not going to be real threats for a bit. Royals made some interesting additions. Giants made some interesting sell decisions. I think they're probably the team that drops the furthest here. Not getting a deal done for Quan, I think, was a miss by the Guardians as well. Mark Teixeira is a good comp. I think he's a better player than Teixeira was. I think he's already going to be a better player than Teixeira. Giants might be a big fat F. They made all those deals and are awful. Well, they're going to be awful. They sold at the deadline. Remember, they made the trade for Devers, trying to buy a piece for free agency. They realized it wasn't working and correctly decided to sell, since they were Major League Baseball's worst team after the trade for Devers. So I give credit for Buster Posey taking a chance, getting a piece for their future, and then realizing it didn't work for this season, trading away the pieces that they could, and going into free agency this offseason and seeing what options they have. So, I think I will put the Giants here next after their tough deadline here. Marlins, they didn't sell enough here at the deadline. They get an F for me. I get you can still trade Cabrera in the future and Sandy Alcantara in the future, but I mean, you got to. There was a real opportunity to take advantage of the market with so few starting pitchers on the market. They could have gotten a real nice trade out of it. All right, so Giants are 20. Marlins snake into the top 20 here. How high do we put them? I think them and the Angels are still right there. Royals made some interesting additions around the periphery of their team. Royals bought and sold. Or excuse me, Royals bought peripheral pieces. Rays bought and sold, excuse me. Reds did some interesting moves. I'm not sure I overly like the moves that they did, but I'll give them a solid B for effort, I guess. They overpaid for Adames. True. Seager's on-base streak continues there with a single. Of course, he had a walk earlier as well, so he's now at 30 games. Can you be fair with Miami when it comes to the grade? Because I saw reports after the deadline that they tried to trade Sandy and Edward, but teams weren't willing to give up what they were asking for. Well, yeah, that's why you kind of try to figure out a deal that does work. I mean, you had a good idea what teams were willing to give up 3 weeks ago. The deadline doesn't change that. Texas looks so bad offensively. I mean, that's part of the reason why I wanted them to go get a bat. But of course, they really struggle against George Kirby. George Kirby in his career against Texas, I believe he's 7-0 with 1.15 ERA. He just owns Texas. That, by the way, was the first hit Corey Seager's had against George Kirby in his career. I think he was 0 for 15, 0 for 14 before that. Sign of it turning around, right? I think I am going to put the Marlins next. They've had a nice little run, but I'm not expecting it to go much further. I think the Angels did some interesting moves here at the deadline. They didn't sell the pieces I think they should have. Is that a double there by Simeon? Uh-oh. They're making Kirby work today. This is probably the worst Kirby has looked against the Rangers ever. And he still hasn't given up a run. Just saying. Was there only one out, too? I think the Angels probably parked themselves right in this spot. I think I'm going to flip the Royals and Rays. I think the Royals take a half step above the Rays now. Guardians are in this mix, though, at the loss of Clase. I think I'm going to put the Guardians down with the loss of Clase. I just don't think they have much going for them the rest of the way here. I'm going to put the Rays next with their buying and selling at the deadline. I don't know what to make of the Reds' moves yet. I mean, they struggled against Atlanta today. Understandably, it's part of the trade deadline wackiness, building their team. Cabrian Hayes, supposed to be a defensive stopper, had a complete gaffe over there at third base today. He had a couple of miscues over there in his with his new team. I think I'm going to put the Reds right here. And then the Royals. Before the season, I picked the Royals to win the AL Central. Oops. Tigers look like they're going to win that one. Third time around, they scored 6 runs. A base hit here makes it a very interesting game. Rangers playing with a little bit of a depleted bullpen. Maton, of course, not available because he just got traded for today. No Coulombe. But you still have Garcia. You still have Wynn. You still have Armstrong. Hayes hit a 3-run home run. Yeah, but it's still the Braves. They have no pitching. Nothing. They're trotting guys out there who should be in AAA. Carrasco pitched very well today against them. He was the best pitcher the Braves threw out there today. Let's see here. Royals move up a little bit. Red Sox, they add Dustin May, but didn't really do too much other than Steven Matz. I do like the Matz addition here. Mariners are going to move up a little bit here. Any of these teams move appreciably down? Cubs not getting a starter, I think, will move down for sure. How far remains to be seen. Rangers not getting a bat. Yankees not getting a starter. And Adolis flies out to end the inning. Not enough offense. Still. Progress, though, right? They do have one of the best managers ever, true. What has he got, 4 World Series? Rings, not appearances. I think appearances he's got, what, 5? 5 or 6 as a manager? I think he's got 5 appearances as a manager. 1 with the Padres, if I remember correctly. All right, so Dodgers, we said, moved down last week. I think the Blue Jays are still pretty much going to be right up there with the Brewers. Phillies did really well at the deadline. I don't think they moved down. Astros, I think, improved here at the deadline. Even with the questions I have about their pitching, I think they solved their issues with the Paredes injury, so they did a nice job there. I think the Red Sox probably are the team I'm going to move down 1 spot here. Although I do like the addition of Matz. Yeah, I'm going to move the Red Sox down 1 spot. It's close-ish, though. I think the Padres did improve. Do they improve more than the Mariners? Mariners are a better team. I like what they've done with their roster. The pitching hasn't been as good as expected this year. It's going to rely a lot on those Mariners, the Mariners pitching staff living up to the expectation we had going into the year. I want to see it with the starting staff first, though, with the Padres. I really like what they've done with the roster, but I can't move them up too much here. Preller did check all the boxes, but I want to see what the Padres, after the trades they've made, look like on the roster, on the field. Give it a week, and if the Padres are playing, like gangbusters, we'll move them up a little bit more. But I like their deadline. I like it more than what the Red Sox did. The inconsistencies the Red Sox have, I don't think the Padres have those concerns. So I'll leave the Padres below the Mariners for now. Do I think the Mariners move in front of the Tigers? Honestly, I do. I just don't believe much in this Tigers team. I like the addition they made to their bullpen, but none of those guys are, massive difference makers for them. They didn't add a third baseman like I was expecting them to try to go out there and do. But I do like their additions to the bullpen, so they still stay around this top 10, top 11 range. I just think the Mariners now are a step ahead of them. Skubal probably would be the best pitcher out of those 2 teams, but I think outside of that, the Mariners are player for player slightly better. Not Me Solo, welcome in. Given up by former Ranger Dane Dunning, yeah. Well, Rocker was going to get the start here. That wasn't really in question. Latz was not going to take the start over Kumar Rocker. If Rocker's healthy, he would have taken the start. All right. Mariners, I'm still going to put just a half step below. I think I'm going to put them there. I might flip them with the Rangers. Because again, the question for the Rangers is offense. Mariners, they solve their biggest questions. I think I will. For the time being, I'm going to put the Rangers at 10 because they did not add a bat. Mariners jump up. I really like their deadline. I do love what your Padres did. They had a really nice deadline. I do think in the offseason they will add a bat of some kind. Remember, they are rumored to be, a team that's going to pursue Bregman, Tucker, some of the big name bats at in the offseason. And I imagine they're going to try to extend Merrill Kelly before the offseason as well. He's the type of pitcher they really like. Kind of fits the mold of a DeGrom and Eovaldi. I'd guess say a 3-year deal, $60 million gets it done. Of course, you're still going to have Jock Peterson's deal on the books, but them's the breaks when you don't make smart offensive decisions. Pitching decisions they've done a really nice job with, but offense, they could use a little bit of an improvement there. Do the Cubs fall to the 8th spot here? Do the Yankees stay at the 8th spot? I think the Yankees stay at 8. I like their bullpen, but I want to see those pitchers start to perform a little bit better. See how that bullpen works out with those starters. Cubs, to me, for not getting a starter, drop here quite easily. I don't think that's really a debate. Mets did a nice job here at the bullpen, at the deadline anyway, adding all those bullpen arms. I have less questions about them than I do the Astros. I think the Astros probably stay right in this spot at 6. I think the Mets go into the top 5. Still have a little bit of an issue for me in the rotation, but I like what they've done overall with this roster. Not many holes. Phillies, I would say, are in that top 4. I think the top 4 basically stayed the same. I'm going to go ahead and... Do I flip the Brewers and the Jays, or do I leave them the same? I think the Dodgers moved down for the 2nd straight week. Phillies had a better deadline. Phillies solved their issues. Dodgers really did not. They're hoping on health, and I want to see them healthy first before we really count on anything. Another run scores here. I think I'm going to leave these teams the same. But again, I think you're splitting hairs between those top 2 at the top. Top 2 at the top. Well, yeah, they're at the top. Anyway. So there's your power rankings. Blue Jays, Brewers, Phillies, Dodgers, Mets, Astros, Cubs, Yanks. Mariners and Rangers, your top 10. Tigers fall out of the top 10 for the first time in a while. Padres climb a little bit. Red Sox fall 1 spot. Royals make a nice climb with their stealth buying that they did. Reds stay about the same. Rays move up a spot with their buying and selling at the deadline. Guardians drop appreciably, of course, with the suspension of Clase. D-backs fell off a cliff. They continue to slide. And the A's climb because of the play of Nick Kurtz. Those are your highlights from their power rankings. Now, I told you guys I'd give you kind of the lay of the land with these standings right now. And let you guys kind of see where things, after the deadline, how I see them going for kind of a playoff predictions. Well, let's start with the standings as they are. Tigers, Blue Jays, Astros currently leading the divisions. Your wild card race, Yankees, Red Sox currently in wild card position. Mariners and Rangers tied for that final spot. Guardians on the periphery, Royals on the periphery, Rays, Angels. That's basically it. On the NL side, currently you have Brewers, Dodgers, Mets leading the divisions. Cubs, Phillies, Padres in the wild card. Reds, Cardinals, Giants, Marlins on the periphery there. I do think the playoff teams will stay the same on the National League side. I think this one's very easy to go forward with. I think the Cubs take the final wild card spot because their lack of starting pitching, I think they drop a little bit here. I think the Padres' additions in their bullpen really shorten the game and improve their rotation quite a bit. I really love what they did with the offense. I think the Padres are a better team now than the Cubs. Phillies, I think, are still a better team, though, than the Padres. I think they have less holes with their roster. You got to hope Nola is a better pitcher, all those kinds of things. But Wheeler, Sanchez, Suarez, that's a really good 1-2-3. Although the Padres, I could be convinced, could beat them in a series. I could be convinced of that. I couldn't have been convinced of that, say, at the beginning of the day. Will I be a prisoner of the moment and say the Padres win the first wild card? Or do I stick with the Phillies? With their roster, with Duran coming in. Padres play an NL West schedule, which for the first half of the season was one of the harder schedules. I'll go ahead and say the Phillies take the top wild card spot currently. Padres take the second wild card. Or do we have the Mets fall and the Phillies take the spot in the division? Only a game separates them. I'll say the Phillies take the division. The Mets miss it just by a little bit. Mets take the top wild card spot. Padres get the second one. Dodgers still win the division. Brewers still win the division. So on the National League side, the Cubs would face. Let's see who probably takes the third division winner out of that group. Brewers have played really well. Do they keep playing well the rest of the way? The records are really close. I'll say Philadelphia takes that final, last division winner there, and they beat the Cubs in the first round because of the pitching. Cubs are bounced. You tag me in a video, but watch in your free time, Michael. I will. Could the Padres catch the Dodgers with this depth? No, they're not going to catch the Dodgers. I think the Mets and Dodgers could drop. I still think the Dodgers are the best team on paper. They need health. And beyond that, I think they're, even with their issues that we've all well documented, they're still right there. They're a game-ish behind the Brewers for best record? I mean, they're right there, and even with all their struggles. And they're finally getting healthy with Snell coming back here in the next week. Actually, I think he's coming back here in the next couple of days, if he isn't already. He had his final rehab start earlier this week, anyway. The other wild card game between the Mets and the Padres, it'll be in New York. That's going to be a tough series. I'll say the Mets take it. So then the top team, I'm guessing, will probably be the Dodgers, because I think they'll course correct and be fine. So that'd mean the Brewers would take on the Phillies. The Dodgers would take on the Mets. Give me the Dodgers by a mile against the Mets because I don't think they have the horses to stack up. And then the Brewers at home in a home series against the Phillies. I trust the experience of the Phillies to be able to handle that one. So I'll say the Phillies win. We have a Phillies-Dodgers NLCS. That's a tough one. I think this is where the talent might hit the trouble here with the Phillies. This is probably the final year this group is going to be together there in Philadelphia. I don't know. Phillies or Dodgers to the World Series. I think I'm going to stick with the Dodgers. Stick with the chalk. I predicted the Dodgers to get to the World Series anyway. I'll take the Dodgers. Brewers swept the Phillies already by a lot in Philly. I mean, I still think Philadelphia has the better talent overall. I think the Brewers are playing really strong baseball, but we'll see. Kelly starts Sunday, and then the next will be on Saturday at Fox against the Phillies. That'll be interesting. We could do that one on our live. Cubs versus Toronto World Series with Soroka starting game 1. I don't think so. All right, so let's go on the National or the American League side. Dodgers failed the deadline, yes, but they still have so much freaking talent. I do think the Tigers still hold on and win the division. So I don't think we're going to get another team like the Guardians or Royals winning the division. For the wild card teams, I think that's where it gets a little tougher. I think the Blue Jays win the division there in the East. I still think the Astros hold on and win the division in the West. I think the Tigers probably are the worst team out of those three, so they will get the worst team in the wild card round. With that said, Yankees didn't add starting pitching. I like the addition of Bednar. Judge, who knows what he's going to come back as. Who knows what's going to happen with the Red Sox with how they play so far. Ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. I do have Victory Plus, yes. Seattle, they solved a lot of their holes. I'm just not sure how high to elevate them with Suarez on that roster, because the Suarez this year with that roster, it still has some swing and miss in it, but it's a much better team than when they had Suarez a few years ago. And I do like how they actually believe in this team and added here at the deadline. So who ultimately makes the wild card here out of those 4 teams? I think the pitching will play up for Texas. The offense, I still have questions, massive questions about. Boston on paper should be really good, but they're so young. Their inconsistencies because their youth really do show. And I think that's the reason why Boston will fall out of the wild card here. I think that's where we'll go. Boston ends up missing the wild card. I'll say Texas gets the last wild card spot because of the pitching, and then you get into October with DeGrom, Eovaldi, and Kelly, and hopefully your offense is performing a little bit better. I'll say Seattle gets the top wild card spot. I do like what they've done. I think the Yankees get that second wild card spot. So it'd be Seattle versus the Yankees in Seattle in a playoff series. It'll be Detroit with Texas coming to Detroit. I think Texas will wipe the floor with the Tigers with that pitching staff. They might win with the game on Skubal on the mound, but I don't think they're beating Eovaldi. I don't think they're beating Kelly or DeGrom, whoever they decide to put game 1, game 2, game 3. So I'll take Texas over Detroit in that wild card round. Seattle versus the Yankees in Seattle in the postseason. I'm going to go with the pitching finally coming through with for Seattle. I still have so many questions about the health of Aaron Judge. I just can't see it. Fried and Rodon versus probably Kirby, Wu, Gilbert in that series. I lean Mariners because of the pitching and the home run ability that really translate to postseason baseball. The Yankees are the Bronx Bombers, though, so you know they smash a few home runs in their own right, but it's in Seattle. I got to lean Seattle in that series. So Seattle and Texas ultimately move up, even though they're the final 2 teams that are, the 2 wildcard teams move on there. So then, between those 2 teams, I think the Jays probably been the best record on the American League side. So they would face Texas in round 2. Houston, with the second best record, would face the Mariners in round 2. That would be a great series. I think Houston would have all it can handle with Seattle. Toronto versus Texas. I lean pitching Texas for sure. Offense, I probably lean Blue Jays. Manager with Bochy. I still think once you get to the postseason, Texas can win a series in any way they want. If they get a couple of good games of offense, they can do it that way. But I don't think they necessarily need it with as much pitching as they're going to have. I think it'll be close, but with the elite starting pitching that the Rangers are going to have, they're going to have their starters go probably 5-6 innings, probably 5 on the low end, and then you can turn it over to any number of good relievers thereafter. I do like what the Jays did though. Your game one would probably be, assuming DeGrom is game one starter, probably facing, I don't know, Gosman. Game two, if Bieber is healthy and proves he's worth it, maybe Bieber. If not, what do you have? Barrios, Bassett. I'd lean Texas for sure with Eovaldi on the mound. I think if he had enough innings pitched right now, he would be everyone's far and away favorite for the Cy Young on the AL side. And then bringing in Merrill Kelly in Game 3, I think it'll be a toss-up. I still lean Rangers, though. Granted, again, rose-colored glasses. Rangers do have the postseason performers. Seager, Garcia, Carter in years past. I think they have the horses to get it done. So I'll say the Rangers end up winning. Seattle versus Houston, I think, is going to be a really close series. Rangers can't hit in Seattle. Well, they haven't been able to hit in Seattle for years. That's not really a shock to a lot of Rangers fans. They struggle going out to the West Coast against those two teams, the Angels and Mariners, for whatever reason. Mariners against the Astros. In Houston, with them winning the division, Hunter Brown probably takes the win in Game 1 of that series. Game 2, I'm guessing Logan Gilbert throws Game 2. Honestly, I trust him against Houston more than I trust Valdez versus the Mariners. I'll say they go split going into Game 3. Probably Wu in Game 3 or Kirby. Whoever doesn't start Game 1 takes Game 3. My guess is Kirby would get the start in Game 3. Wu gets the start in Game 1. Kirby versus Arrighetti, Javier. One of those guys there. I would lean Mariners in Game 3. Game 4. Evans. Oh, no. Castillo for the Mariners, excuse me. I think the Astros could whip up on Castillo in that one. He's not been as good as he has in years past. I'll say they're split going into Game 5. Hunter Brown takes Game 5 for them. Game 6 in Seattle, I think Kirby takes it. Going to Game 7 in Houston, Wu versus Arrighetti. I'll take Seattle. I think they'll rise to the occasion. So Seattle versus Texas, Game 1 in Seattle. Ugh. And the Rangers suck playing in Seattle. That's a tough one. Astro, welcome in. Sub-Zero. Can the Mariners step up and beat the man? I think they could beat the Astros. Yes, I picked them to beat them. Playoff Correa is back too, yeah. If it's in Seattle, which if the Rangers end up getting the final wild card spot, it would be, you'd have DeGrom set up for Game 1, because I think they would be able to beat the Blue Jays in 6, whereas the Astros Mariners series goes 7, so that means your rotation is probably going to have Gilbert in Game 1. Game 2 goes to Wu, probably. Or what? I can't remember. Was I saying Kirby was? Kirby was Game 3. So I mean, Kirby would take the game in game or 7. So then Wu would take it in game 2 in Seattle. Kirby would take it in game 3 in Texas. Interesting. If they throw Kelly in game 1, DeGrom in game 3, Eovaldi in game 2, I'd say the Rangers come out 2-1 in those games. Because I'd rather throw DeGrom at home in game 3 rather than in game 1. Because then DeGrom gets the ball in game 7 as well. It'd be very close. Jack Leiter would take it in game 4 versus Castillo. Give me the Rangers at home there. Game 5 would be Kelly again. I think they end up taking that one there. So then you go to game 6 with Eovaldi on the mound. 3-2 Rangers lead the series. I think it probably is a 6-game series. With Evo taking that one. I think it's all how you set it up. The bats will have to play, though. You must really hate Houston? I don't really hate Houston. I do hate Correa when he's this braggadocious guy that he's turned into whenever he plays for the Astros. But I like Alvarez, the player. Brady's is one of my favorites on their team. Loved Kyle Tucker with that roster. Altuve I could take or leave. I'm not really one way or the other on him. He got a bad rap for the whole, check him kind of a thing when he hit that home run. Space City Texan. Welcome in. So then you're facing with the Dodgers and Rangers in the series. I think that was my prediction to start the year as well. I still think the Dodgers have overwhelming talent, honestly. And if their horses are healthy, they're the one team that with a healthy rotation has an ace in every single start they throw out there. Altuve's buzzer was a nothing burger, true. I do think the Rangers' depth offensively, surprisingly, is actually a little bit better than what the Dodgers are trotting out there right now. Dodgers are very top-heavy as well. But I think the top-end talent of Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman are a little bit better than Seager, Simeon, Garcia, whoever else you want to include in that group for Texas. I'm going to go ahead and still say the Dodgers win it, but as a Ranger fan, when we get to that point, I'm going to pick the Rangers with my heart. My head is still going to pick the Dodgers, but I'll say the Rangers get to the series and lose against the Dodgers. I do think the Rangers are appreciably better than the Astros. You're right there, Willard. When healthy, I'd say the offense is certainly better for the Astros, but the Astros can't hold a candle to the pitching staff of the Rangers. Rotation, not even close. Your best, Hunter Brown versus DeGrom or Eovaldi, either one of them. Give me Evo, give me DeGrom. Framber versus either of those two, same thing. I'm still curious how Merrill Kelly adjusts to playing in Texas. We'll see. Leiter is a developing ace, still in his rookie year. It's going to take him some time. You're thinking Texas cannot get past Seattle? We'll see. I think Bochy knows how to handle his pitching staff, and they'll be able to figure out Seattle here. I think this series is going to be a good test case for how Bochy is going to handle things when they do face each other in the postseason. Because that'll be your ALCS based off of my prediction anyway. Let's go ahead and check out the score of the game anyway. I think they're probably winning by like 6 or 7 by now, right? Yeah. 6-0. Well, you tell me. Who's the better pitcher right now, Eovaldi or Brown? If you say Brown, who's the homer? Who's the better pitcher, DeGrom or Brown? It's DeGrom. I'm not just going to bend over backwards because the Astros are leading the division. Daniel, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Really generous of you. Now, I will say that health is going to be a big factor for the Astros to do anything. I mean, they need Yordan Alvarez. Otherwise, they're not getting very far. Oh, I know you're telling me. How do you feel about the Jays trades? I like what they've done so far. I think that the Jays, had a chance to really go out there and add a Stephen Kwan type to really finish it off. But overall, I think they took one of the riskiest trades, making the deal for Shane Bieber, who hadn't thrown a pitch all year. That's thrown in 6 games anyway, taken 6 starts in 2 years. Big risk, but the big reward is there. If he is back to being Shane Bieber, you're talking Cy Young type of arm when he's right. He could be a real difference maker once it comes to October. And the Jays, there weren't really that many options on the market that would have given them that type of ability. And I think the Jays realized that. There was a lot of Canadian radio that I listened to about them, hemming and hawing about whether a trade would even make a difference with this club. And I think that the Shane Bieber is worth the risk here. That if he's worth it, or if he does hit, that trade is the type that can really propel them. But a lot of risk there on Shane Bieber. Now, it only cost them a number 5 prospect in their system, but I still think the risk is worth it for the Blue Jays. The offense was Corey Seager, and that's it? I don't know about that. Do you think Correa plays inspired at bats now that he's at home? Absolutely. Correa is an X factor to that team. I think he's going to have an exponential effect on that roster. I think Altuve plays a year younger. The whole Rangers lineup runs hot and cold. We've seen that all year. But the one thing that's been constant, even when they're cold, is that the pitching staff's there. And now with Rocker likely losing a spot in the rotation, the one weak spot in the rotation, without Molly being back healthy yet, has now been taken care of by Merrill Kelly. Alrighty. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. We've talked baseball for 11 hours today? Really do appreciate you guys spending some time with us. Did a player compression Hunter Brown versus DeGrom? I'll put it this way. Hunter Brown early this season was better than DeGrom. He was a better pitcher. I'll give you that. But his last 5-6 starts, give me DeGrom. Even with his bad one out there in L.A. The consistency is better there with DeGrom than with Brown anyway. I'll ride my horse. I'll let the Astros fans ride theirs. We'll see how it works out in October. That was a crazy game, though, earlier. Braves and Reds. 8 runs each in the 8th inning. 888. Alrighty. Appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to go ahead and call it an evening anyway. I am so very tired right now. You guys have no idea. But we'll have another couple of videos coming out for you guys tomorrow, breaking down some of the trades that we saw today, how they might impact these rosters going down the stretch here. Again, still a lot to be decided here. We have no idea how these players are going to. We have no idea how these teams are going to react to the additions or subtractions they made. So we'll see how these rosters ultimately pan out here in the second half. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks here because I think that's going to be really telling for how these wild card races are going to unfold. I think it's basically a 4-team race for those 3 wild card spots in the AL. I think the National League is pretty much set with their wild card picture right now. I don't see them those teams really changing. Now the positioning will change, but I think the teams will all end up making the postseason. But either way, it should be a fascinating final couple of months of the season. It is officially a sprint. The marathon is over. The sprint has begun. And we'll see which team ultimately is able to perform the best. Appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be back live again tomorrow night around 9:45 in the evening. Appreciate you guys' support, all the new subscribers we gained over the last few weeks. We gained almost, 175 subscribers again this year on trade deadline day. So I really do appreciate all the support you guys have given us. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Stay safe out there, everybody.